Friends are sharing time together at Wings Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings Etc. is a really big deal around here.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
The National Weather Service says mostly cloudy today with a temperature near 32 or so. Tonight down to 20. We'll hit 40 with sunshine on Wednesday, 51 warming up Thursday with plenty of sunshine. And a good chance of showers late Thursday night on and off Friday morning with a high of 51. Saturday, a chance of snow flurries. Otherwise, 38 degrees, 32 sunny on Sunday.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
This is Mike Greenberg for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO ESPN.
This is a proud presentation of Mississippi River Radio Sports, the sports authority.
Check this out right here.
It's time now for the Redhawks Coaches Show on the SEMO ESPN Radio Sports Network. The Southeast Coaches Show airs every Tuesday at noon on ESPN 92.9 FM and 1220 AM from Wings Etc. in Cape and Jackson. This is your chance to delve deep into the Redhawks basketball season with head coach Rick Gray. So what do you say?
Come on, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go live to Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN.
It is the Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings Etc. in Jackson, where we invite you to stop by, join us for lunch. I believe we'll be back in the Cape Girardeau location next Tuesday, so we invite you to join us there. If you have not made lunch plans, we invite you to join us here. You can partake of their award-winning jumbo wings. And also, if you'd like to carry that out, that's no problem. Or you can dine in with us back here in the banquet room. They have a full menu, and it includes burgers, wraps, subs, quesadillas. They've got entree salads, if that's your preference. They have smoked ribs. Their appetizer lineup includes their ultimate nachos and their spicy, deep-fried pickle spears. A lot of us were here last night for the SEMO ESPN Birthday Bash, and we were watching the national championship game on one of the many high-definition flat-screen televisions. They've got the best sports programming, including the NFL ticket, playoff football this weekend right here at Wings Etc. A comfortable, laid-back atmosphere, great food, friendly service. So we invite you to join us anytime. Two options, Cape Girardeau or Jackson. Coach Rick Ray is here as we get you ready for a midweek home game. The Jacksonville State Gamecocks are going to be in town. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm well. I know that you're a football guy. Your former school, Clemson, was taking on the University of Alabama last night. What did you think of that football game? I was thinking, and I've seen pretty much every national championship game going back a while. The last one I could remember that was that good was that 2005 game with Vince Young and Texas and USC with Reggie Bush. That was a great game last night.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the last time you had a great national championship game was at Texas versus USC, and it was kind of similar in the fact that USC was a prohibitive favorite, and everybody thought that Texas would, lose the game. And Texas had a great performance by Vince Young, a dynamic quarterback. You kind of had the same similarity here with Clemson having that dynamic quarterback with Deshaun Watson. And so I think the national stage got a chance to see how good Clemson is and then how stacked they are. I thought a lot of people thought throughout it 1 through 3, as far as like the depth and the rotation, that Alabama would be able to dominate them and eventually wear them down because of the depth Alabama has. But it was really a phenomenal game to watch, the back and forth. The fact that there was, I believe, 40 points scored between the two teams in just the fourth quarter without any penalties at all tells you how well those teams are playing.
And if I told you before the game that Clemson was going to put 40 on that vaunted Alabama defense, what would you say Alabama's chances of winning the game were going to be?
Well, that's an L. I would think that automatically that's a loss, because you wouldn't think that Alabama would be able to score that many points against Clemson. I think their offense is good, but they're more of a ground and pound game. But I think what you saw was the special teams end up being the difference in that game. Obviously, the onside kick, the gumption for him to make that call in the national championship game is just big time.
Was that the greatest onside kick you've ever seen?
Also, and it was executed. And the funny thing, talking to Marlon Humphrey after the game, they said that they practiced that play and he never catches catches the football. And so the fact that they did that play, knowing that Marlon Humphrey never catches a football in practice, that just took a lot of guts. And then obviously the return by Kenyon Drake. And to see a guy like Kenyon Drake that's been through so many injuries, he broke his leg there, and then he came back, he broke his wrist. So they always thought that he was going to be a dynamic guy like a Reggie Bush. And to see him battle through all those injuries and see him go on the field like that in his last game and succeed, you just think a lot about that.
Boy, and how about Deshaun Watson sets a record, a championship game record, broke Vince Young's record for most yardage in a national championship game. I think he had 478 and still lose the game. I know it's heartbreaking. The Dabo Swinney, story is easy to get behind and root for. I guess if there's one positive for Clemson, Watson's coming back next year. They'll have the quarterback back.
Yeah, and they have a lot of people coming back. And I'm telling you, I had a personal relationship with Dabo. He actually plays noon ball all the time. And so he comes over and he plays noon ball with us. He never passes the basketball, and none of his
He's a selfish player, is what you're saying.
And none of his assistants or graduate assistants never say anything about it. But they get no touches during that noon ball game. But he's a great person, and what you see on camera, it's not fake. It really is him. He's just a down to earth guy.
Boy, a guy that. Basically, he and his mother were homeless. Father battled alcoholism, wasn't there. I think they have since patched, a little bit of a relationship. But if you know anything about his story, I don't know how you cannot root for him. A typical American dream type guy.
Yeah, how about the fact that he's a freshman at the University of Alabama, and he's in a 2-bedroom dorm, and so his mom is living with him. Just think about that. Not only just the fact that like Dabo would do that, but the roommate is all right with that. So, it's just a phenomenal story to see where he came from as far as like being a walk-on guy and end up being on the national stage like that.
And I've heard him tell the story, and it's not even a second thought about his mom living with him on campus. It's like, well, we were out of options here, so this is what we had to do, and we trudged forward. And I mean, he's so positive and so open about what he has dealt with. How much does that make him human when he sits in a living room and talks to a young man or talks to parents?
Well, it makes him relatable because a lot of the homes he's going into to recruit these young men, they're disenfranchised for the most part. And so for him to go in and be able to tell that story, automatically now there is a kinship. Those guys relate to him because, we're going through some of the same things now. So I think that's really important because, when it's all said and done, you got to have empathy for what your players are going through. And the fact that Dabo has been through something like that right away, there's that instant empathy on his part.
Every year, some clickbait website blogger will, break a story. I have a source that Nick Saban is interested in this NFL job, or the NFL is interested in talking to Nick Saban, this franchise, the Giants, Eagles, whoever happens to be the team that particular year. But if you're a college coach and you can just go out and handpick maybe 22 All-Americans to bring it on your roster versus sitting somewhere in a draft order where you have to draft the player and wait until 32 other teams draft the guy before you can take your next. I don't see the big call, especially if the money is relatable, for why Nick Saban would ever want to jump from Alabama to the NFL.
Well, there's only two reasons I would think that he would do it. First of all, just the fact that he can go to that stage in the National Football League and prove that he can actually be successful there after the stint that he had with the Miami Dolphins. That would be one reason. And the second reason would just be the fact that he doesn't win a national championship at Alabama, and it's a disappointment. Just that constant pressure of the season that they had last year where they get to the Final Four and they're the number 1 ranked team and they end up losing Ohio State. And the Alabama fans are disappointed about that season. So, everybody's going to expect him every single year to not only play in the Final Four or play in the national championship game, but to win the national championship. It would have been a huge disappointment. And the pressure was all on Alabama to win that game. The pressure was not on Clemson to win that game, even though they was the number 1 team. So you could see maybe those two reasons being the only reason he would make that jump.
Do you think maybe a 75-25, maybe that's a little high, I don't know. Do you think most of America was rooting for the Clemson Tigers last night?
Oh, I would think so. You know, obviously you had your Alabama fans probably, and that split between Alabama and Auburn that were rooting for Alabama. But I would say because of the fact when you have that, you know, top dog on there, you end up being hated sometimes. And so I would think that a predominant amount of America was probably rooting for Clemson.
So you're talking about Darth Vader and the Empire. I understand. Now, also, you know, I know SEC people are SEC through and through, but some of them just absolutely loathe the University of Alabama. Do you think there were some Mississippi State fans or other SEC fans that their hatred for Alabama outweighed their allegiance and rooting for the SEC last night?
Well, I think you're going to have some Auburn fans that feel that way, maybe some LSU fans that feel that way, Mississippi State. But I think for the most part, you know, everybody wants to hear that SEC chant.
So they stick together.
Okay. So they're sticking together. It hurts them to say that, and they're rooting for the Crimson Tide to win. But I would think for the most part, everybody's rooting for SEC win, so they're rooting for Alabama.
All right, there you go. You see Coach Ray's extensive knowledge of football. How do you feel about the cover two, Coach? So when you talk about Nick Saban, you look at, I think, 5th national championship, which ties him with Bear Bryant's. Now, Bear Bryant won 6, but he won 5 during the Pole era. Some of those national championships were split back then. It was a different system. With as competitive as recruiting is today, with scholarship limits that they have today, with, you know, let's face it, competition level is really good in college football. Do you think it was tougher to coach then or tougher to coach now?
Well, I'll tell you a story that I heard during this whole national championship campaign. They said that the coach at Clemson, the head football coach at Clemson, would go and meet with Bear Bryant, okay? And so they would have a recruiting meeting. And so the recruiting meeting was simply about this. He would say, Coach Bryant, these are the guys that I'm trying to get. These are the guys that Ohio State are trying to get. These are the guys that Michigan are trying to get. So don't waste your time recruiting those guys because you won't get those guys. Here are the guys that we're not going to end up taking that you guys need to look at. So you're talking about another BCS program like Clemson, who's really good, and going to meet with Bear Bryant and having a recruiting meeting and saying, like, these are the guys that you really need to go after because you're going to waste your time recruiting these guys. That would not happen in this day and age.
Can you imagine a summit like that for basketball?
No, not at all. So I think the recruiting is so much different now than it was back then. And it mostly because, like, there was 4 teams that were going to be on TV every weekend. So you're going to see Alabama, you're going to see Michigan, you're going to see Ohio State. But now with the advent of ESPN and all the different channels that you can watch, you know, no one would ever think about going to Oregon at that point in time, or going to Baylor, or going to some of these other schools now. But I think the recruiting has changed so much that it gives other teams a chance to be as successful as in Alabama. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Coach Rick Ray, it's the Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings Etc. in Jackson. Trey Kellum is going to join us coming up a little bit later on in the show. Redhawks junior forward. What are your thoughts on Trey Kellum? Your first meeting with him? I'm sure when you got here, you probably watched a lot of film, tape, video. I don't know what term you guys use now. I don't know nobody has literal film, but I know it's still called film. What were your first meetings and impressions of Trey Kellum when you got here?
Well, first of all, when you had to go back and look at his previous college because he had to sit out last year. So there was no tape of him playing at Southeast Missouri State. So we looked at some things from his previous college. And, you know, the one thing that you sit down and you have your first meeting with Trey Kellum is you come to find out that he's right about everything. He's never wrong. So
we'll keep that in mind when we're talking to him.
You're never going to win an argument on that. He's going to try to get the last word in there. And so, like, there's a times that we actually bump heads because you may not notice, but I kind of think the same way at times too. So, you know, he's a kid that's good for us on our team because, like, we need toughness, we need physicality. And that's what Trey brings to the table. So, you know, now we got to get him to just, like, stop fouling. And so, like, that's the thing we always talk about with him is, like, hey, I can't be wrong when I'm blowing the whistle in practice, and the refs can't be wrong blowing in practice. There's just one constant here, and the constant is you're fouling. So if we can keep him on the court more and increase his minutes, because if you look what comes in behind him are just two true freshmen. And so what we want is we want to keep our junior college guys out there to have the physicality to go up and compete against some of these guys. But when we bring in those freshmen, they're playing hard, they're trying, but they just don't have the experience. They just don't have the bodies to be out there extended minutes at this point in time.
You know, you got to a perilous potential situation there at Eastern Kentucky on Saturday. You had three players, Robbie Dozier, Eric McGill, and Jalen Stewart, who are unavailable, violation of team rules. And I know that's stuff you keep in-house, but so they were unavailable. Two of them were in uniform. And so all of a sudden, you got 7 guys. Now you have 2 players that foul out of the game, including Trey, and Antonius Cleveland's out there about 3 minutes to go. He's got 4 fouls. Did it cross your mind at all? Wait a minute. I may have to pull a Hoosiers situation here and go with 4 players.
Yeah, we could have been that way with Gene Hackman. Those are my 4. But we don't want to get to that situation. And, for us, Antonius Cleveland, his wrist has really been bothering him at that point in time. And, he came by it with about maybe 2.5 minutes left in the game. And he said, Coach, I got to come out. My wrist. I looked at him. I said, there are no subs. you need to stay in there. So he's really been toughing it out with that injury. He hasn't been the same these past 2 games as far as like his inability to grasp the basketball, finish in traffic. He hasn't even been practicing and just going on game day. So, now we did have that situation, and luckily it didn't come to fruition there.
Yeah, Antonius, 4 out of 13 in the Morehead State game, did not shoot the ball. I think had 1 field goal in the Eastern Kentucky game. Those aren't Antonius Cleveland numbers. So we kind of commented. We saw that his wrist was taped. Where's he at now? What is his status potentially for tomorrow night? Yeah,
he's going to get an MRI today. And then once we have that MRI, we already had the X-ray, and the X-ray shows that there's no damage as far as like bone structure. And in order to go and look at the ligaments, you have to have an MRI. So he's going to have that MRI, and so hopefully that'll give us a little bit more in-depth information about what we need to do with him. The big thing for me is I never want to put a player out there and he's putting himself in harm's way. I'd much rather like sit him out for a week and then bring him back where he's 100%, we can actually help his team. But, Antonius wants to be out there. He wants to help the team. But we want to make sure that he's not hurting himself and hurting the team by his inability to do some of the things that he can really do. It's kind of the same situation we had with Jamal Calvin, where he was out there and he kept getting injured and he was maybe 60%, 75% low. Well, let's just hold him out an extended amount of time and bring him back where he's 100%. And I think you can see the dividends that played, because now Jamal is really playing well for us.
And, for those who don't know, it is the right wrist. That is his shooting wrist. What is your experience with wrist injuries? And they vary. I mean, you've got the small, tiny little hamate bones in the wrist, but wrist sprains. I know I sprained a wrist in high school in baseball, diving, for a ball, and I got twisted up. To this day, sometimes I'm pushing out of a chair and can still feel it. Wrist is kind of a tricky injury, right?
Well, I think it boils down to 2 things. I think it boils down to, like, if you're Steph Curry and you hurt your wrist, your shooting wrist, you're really concerned. But if you're a guy that doesn't shoot the ball very well and you hurt your wrist, it might end up helping you shoot it in that regard. So it all boils down to what type of shooter and player you are. But, for us, I think the big thing you see the difference is with Antonius is he's coming out 2 games in a row that he had double figures before he hurt that wrist. So he was really doing a great job of rebounding the basketball. And in these past 2 games, he hasn't rebounded the ball very well. And he also hasn't finished at the rim because of that injury.
Yeah, Cleveland, 3 rebounds in the game against Eastern Kentucky. And let's keep in mind, he's your leading rebounder. He's the 8th leading rebounder in the conference, the 7th leading offensive rebounder in the conference. I mean, this is a top 10 rebounder and the guy who you really depend on, and all of a sudden he's compromised.
Yeah, and I think you see the difference there as far as like his inability to grasp the basketball when he's in traffic there in these past 2 games, because usually he comes away with a lot of those, and now he's not coming away with some of those rebounds that he typically gets because of that injury.
All right, Do we know about the availability of the other guys tomorrow? Will violation going to keep them out? And if it's Antonius Cleveland, that means 6 guys, right? I mean, if Antonius has to sit.
Yeah, they still have some steps that they need to take, and that's an ongoing and fluid situation. So, it's all about those guys doing what they need to do in order to get back in the team's good graces and my good graces.
So no determination yet. So
correct.
We don't know how many players you might have, but there is a possibility we may not see Antonius tomorrow.
There's a possibility depending on this results of the MRI.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. What were your thoughts about Eastern Kentucky in the game? Now, they end up winning the basketball game. Final score was 88-69. The one thing, and it doesn't show it on the stat sheet, so I know it's something you had to actually put paper to pen to figure out, but you were coming out with 2-point field goal stats. We don't get that on a stat sheet. That was the thing that you really focused in on, is what did they shoot basically in the paint or just outside the paint in the game. Not 3 points, because they're the top 3-point shooting team. You'd normally think we'd be talking about 3-point shots with EKU. You came out talking 2-point shots.
Yeah, I think they took 26 threes that game. And like you said, they're the leading 3-point field goal percentage team in the conference. And so we held them to 36%. From the 3-point line, which I thought we did a good job.
They shoot 40, so you held them below their average.
When you consider the way they shoot threes, but I thought the difference in the game was twofold. First of all, our 2-point field goal percentage, first of all, they were, I believe, 16 of 41. We were 16 of 41 on our twos, which is 39%. And I believe they were 24 of 41. So they end up shooting 59% from 2-point compared to our 39% from 2 points. So that means that they were getting to the rim and finishing their 2-point attempts. We were getting to the rim and not finishing our 2-point field goal attempts. So that's one thing. And the other part of it was, I thought we got into the bonus early in the second half. I think there was 14 minutes left when we got into the bonus, and we had opportunities to go to the free throw line, front ends of 1-and-1, with the game being an 8-point ball game, a 6-point ball game, and we missed those front ends of the 1-and-1 opportunities. So, the best way to get back into a basketball game is to score when the clock is stopped, and that's when shooting free throws. And so we really missed out on some opportunities to cut the lead to 6 or cut it to 4 when we had a front end of a 1-and-1, and we missed it.
With every situation where somebody can't contribute, whether it be injury, whether it be other reasons, minutes are down, that means someone has to take their place. And in the last couple of games, the guy who's gotten extended minutes and an extended look from you has been freshman Tony Anderson. Now, he's your tallest player at 6'9". He scored 10 points in the Morehead State game, which was a career high. He topped that with 11 points, a career high against Eastern Kentucky, 6 rebounds. We're starting to see a little more from Tony Anderson, and he's starting to get more of an opportunity.
Yeah, I think with Tony Anderson, like most kids, there's a difference between, in their game, perception and reality. And so making them understand the difference between those two things is huge. And so I thought Tony was trying to create a little bit too much on the perimeter. And when he was creating on the perimeter, it really made our offense stagnant. And more importantly, he didn't make those opportunities. And so we're just trying to get him to understand the difference between a good shot and a bad shot for him. And so Tony's a guy, because of his perimeter skills, that can do some things. He can make open shots. He can drive by people. But I thought he was trying to create those opportunities instead of letting other people create those opportunities for him. And so if he's wide open at 15 feet because Antonius has driven the basketball, or the ball goes in the post to Trey Kellum and is kicked out, then he's got the opportunity to make that shot. But like when he's trying to create that shot, then it ends up being a bad shot for him. So I thought over these past 2 games, he's really done a good job of understanding when his opportunities are there to score. And so by that, his field goal percentage has been really high. He's gotten to the free throw line. He's scored 10 points. He scored 11 points. So for him, it's just a maturation process of him starting to understand when he needs to try to look for offense.
And early in the season, not very good at the free throw line. And that's not shocking. You're being a true freshman. You get your first opportunity and you don't get to many free throw attempts. But Eastern Kentucky game, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, but he's showing you that he's a guy who has the ability to get there, and at least in the EKU game, a guy that when he gets there can convert.
Yeah, and for me, the biggest stat on that is the free throw attempts. And, he's been a kid that's kind of settled for perimeter shots, and so him getting the opportunity to get inside and finish more and get fouled, I think is a true stat that we need to look at with him, because you want your bigs, your so-called 4s and 5s, getting opportunities to get to the free throw line. And so those guys need to take those opportunities, and for him to get there 8 times and then be 7 or 8, I think that really bodes well for him.
All right. We've also seen Kyle Gullett see some increased minutes. He played 26 minutes in the Eastern Kentucky game, 5 points, got to the free throw line, his first ever free throws. I think he missed his first and made his next 2. Kyle Gullett, a guy that we saw very early on, has a pretty good touch as far as a jump shot.
Yeah, he can really shoot the basketball, and especially from that position. He's more of a swing between a 3-man and a 4-man. His lack of physicality at this point in time hurts him at that 4-man position, and sometimes his foot speed at the 3 position is a little bit of a problem, but he's got a great knowledge of basketball. He's always in the right spot. He knows 2 different positions, every set play and things like that. He's a bright kid, and so
I think 4.0 and 33 on his ACT. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, no, he's really smart, and he's majoring in engineering here, and he's a guy that's taking math classes and things like that. So he didn't know my background as far as me having a math degree. So he came in talking about some differential equations, and he said, "You wouldn't understand that." I said, "No, I wouldn't." I said, I only got a degree in applied mathematics, and he didn't know that at that point in time. So, but he's a really good kid, and he's out there trying to do the right things. But, one thing about Kyle that you notice is he gets a lot of his hands on the balls on offensive rebounds. And so that's what we need, him keeping plays alive, and he's balled into his role. And, quite frankly, he didn't expect to have to be out there playing, coming in as a walk-on freshman into the program. But he's really taken on the role well, and he's a really likable kid, but he's just always in the right spot doing the right things.
So if I understand you correctly, and this is the way that Coach Took will say it, he doesn't have enough muscles. We need to get more muscles on it, and that's what you're saying about Kyle. We're trying to get him some more muscles.
Yeah, not only more muscles, but more meals. The meals, you can lift weights all you want to, but if you're not eating the way you're supposed to eat, it makes a difference. So I'm always talking to him about, have you eaten? Just eat some more. And so when he comes over to the house or we have any sort of a team meal, we making sure he's taking to-go plates with him, because we got to make sure we continually feed him to put on some muscle.
All right, we need to go with the breaded boneless wings rather than the regular wings, because I think that's gonna Joe Hobbs back there. That's the way to go, apparently. Okay, we're gonna have Trey Kellum up here. Going forward, tell us what you visualize. I know sometimes coaches see guys' games and maybe differently than they see their own game. How do you see Trey Kellum's game going forward with the best chance, not only for him to be successful, but also for the Redhawks to be successful?
Well, it's funny you asked that, because we watched film yesterday. We always have individual film sessions. And I think that we don't have your typical back to the basket bigs. And so what I don't want him doing is I don't want him making back to the basket moves. I want him to be more of a back in the day, a Jack Sigma, a Kevin Garnett.
A Sigma reference.
Yeah, he has no idea who that was, so I had to go a little bit more urgent.
He played for the Seattle Sonics. That's a team from a long time ago. Yeah.
So we want him being a guy that's a turning face, like a Carmelo Anthony, where he sweep and drive by people and use spin moves and things like that. Use his quickness. And I think sometimes we put ourselves in troubles with our bigs because we always are trying to muscle people down. We don't have a Shaquille O'Neal that can just back people down and shoot jump hooks and things like that. So we've got to use our quickness and our athleticism to just go by people. So I like to see him more when he gets the ball in the post, because he does a good job of posting. He uses his body. He seals well. He's an aggressive guy. So we want him, when he gets that basketball, just to sweep and turn and face and drive by people, because he can get to the free throw line because of his quickness.
You know, he did a little shot blocking when he was at Florida A&M. I think he was second on the team in block shots, led him in rebounding. I mean, there are some things that he can do down in the post.
Oh, don't let him hear that now, because what we're trying to get him to do is actually not jump and try to block shots, because what he ends up doing, he fouls. And so,
gotcha.
you're a bad influence when you bring up that stat about him doing those things at his former university. But no, he's a guy that we always talk about, like, you need to stay on your feet and you need to wall up, and then the second guy can come in and try to block the shot. But the initial guy is just so hard to block shots on the ball. Those guys are kind of elite in their shot blocking ability. So, no, he blocked some shots back in the day, but that was a little different.
That was a long time ago, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's gotten older.
Hey, one thing I did want to ask you, we were talking about, back in the day with Bear Bryant and the new era with Nick Saban, and certainly it's a much different game. The recruiting trail is much different, as you documented. What do you think about winning and this is no, knock on John Wooden, but John Wooden in his day won 7 national championships in a 10-year span, had some of the elite college players of all time in Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton. So, I mean, just some great names versus today where there are more teams, there is more talent, there is certainly more competition. I mean, let's face it, back in John Wooden's day, Butler, there's no way they could compete with the upper teams like that can now. Teams like George Washington and Butler, these teams are making Final Fours now. What is the difference maybe from the Wooden era to the Mike Krzyzewski era?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's suffice to say if Lou Alcindor or Bill Walton were playing in this era, they're still going to win the national championship. Yeah. I mean, those guys, if you go back and look at the stats and see what they did as far as like being basketball players and their statistics and high percentages, I mean, you surround those guys with decent players, they're going to win the national championship. They were unbelievable what they did in college. So, but I think the difference is as far as like the expansion. Back in that day, you only had the one person from your conference that moved on and played in the NCAA tournament. And even at some point in time, the NIT was considered more elite than the NCAA tournament.
That's unheard of to think about that now.
Yeah, but the field has really changed. It went from 24 teams to 32 teams. So, obviously you had less opportunity to lose, in the NCAA tournament. So I think that's the big difference that's really changes. Now with the 68 teams, you have more of an opportunity to lose in the NCAA tournament. When you have 24 and 32, you have to win 2 games and you're now in the Final Four.
All right, it's time to talk with Trey Kellum. He is going to join us right after the break. Again, if you are looking for a spot for lunch, we're here. We're at Wings, Etc. in Jackson. We invite you to join us. We will be joined by Trey Kellum when we come back. It's the Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show from Wings, Etc. in Jackson.
Phone. But what about that old vehicle in your driveway? It's time to get into the new with Ford. New is Ford, America's best-selling brand, because new is the power and performance of available EcoBoost engine technology, and new can practically park itself with available active park assist. So get into the new with Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer or go to Ford.com for current offers. Sales claim based on 2015 calendar year sales, January through November.
Maybe it's hot out today, or maybe it's cold, but this weather's got you thinking about heading to the bar for an ice-cold Coors Light. Maybe it's a bar built into the steep cliff face of the Rocky Mountains with a waterfall that pours down on a multitude of Coors Lights, chilling them with the frigid power of a Rocky Mountain stream. You order one and it suddenly appears in your hand. It's so cold you feel like a giant eagle riding on cool winds, content with your foray into Rocky Mountain country. You forgot about the weather already, didn't you? Thanks, Coors Light. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Great beer, great responsibility.
The conversation has been growing about Wings, Etc. See, Wings, Etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now the word is getting out about Wings, Etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings, Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings, Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings, Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings, Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings, Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings, Etc. is a really big deal around here.
And Your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
The National Weather Service says mostly cloudy today with a temperature near 32 or so. Tonight down to 20. We'll hit 40 with sunshine on Wednesday. 51 warming up Thursday with plenty of sunshine. And a good chance of showers late Thursday night on and off Friday morning with a high of 51. Saturday, a chance of snow flurries. Otherwise, 38 degrees, 32 sunny on Sunday.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
This is Mike Golick for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO ESPN.
The Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. We are live at Wings, etc. in Jackson, and we invite you to stop by. If you can't make it by for lunch today, maybe you can make it by for lunch tomorrow. They have daily half-pound lunch specials starting at just $6.49. They've got food and drink specials throughout the week. That includes their famous 59-cent wings every Monday. They've got a kids menu. My kids were here last night for the SEMO ESPN birthday bash. They enjoyed the boneless wings, and I think my daughter Josie got a cheeseburger. They've got family-friendly video games in the dining rooms, and most importantly, they are open 7 days a week, and they're open late on the weekends because the games run late. It is Wings, etc. in Jackson. Trey Kellum is our guest, who is from Peoria, Illinois. Now, I'm from Macomb, Illinois, where Western Illinois University is located. You are from Peoria, which is where Bradley is located. Are you familiar with Macomb at all?
Yeah, I got a couple teammates that go to Macomb, Illinois. I have a former teammate, Eric Barrett, that I played high school basketball with, that plays football for Western Illinois, and a couple teammates that play for the men's basketball team too.
Well, you won a state championship in high school. What was that like? I mean, it's tough to win a state championship in any sport. I mean, so many things can happen, especially when you get into the postseason. What was your experience like making a run to a state championship?
It was one of the best moments in my life. It was very hard. It was a lot of competition back then when I was but back then it was a lot of competition. And for the state championship to be in my hometown in Peoria, Illinois, it was kind of a surreal feeling to win the championship in front of my hometown fans.
Now, let's see. Well, we've played at Bradley before. We played at two different places. Which was it? Was it the Civic Center?
It was the Civic Center. Yep.
Okay, so you won it at the Civic Center. What do you remember about that night?
That night, after we won, we had a little party at the hotel downtown for the players. It was something that I'll never forget. I remember during the game we was playing North Chicago, and we thought we knew we was going to win from the tip to the end because we just felt like that team couldn't pair with us at all.
Who was the best player that you played against in high school?
Maybe Ryan. Probably not Ryan Boatwright that went to UConn.
Now that's pretty nice program. Now, was he a part of the national championship a couple of years ago?
Yeah, he won with Shabazz Napier in the same backcourt when they beat Kentucky, I think.
Okay. Has he showed you the ring?
No, I haven't spoken to him since high school.
All right. Well, you figure maybe you cross paths. Do you still keep in contact with any of your high school guys?
I talk to Alec Peters every now and then. He goes to Valparaiso. He's like the 6'9", kind of the to-go guy. So I kind of communicate with him back and forth. And I kind of keep tabs with Sean Livingston. He went to my high school, so I kind of talked to him throughout the season to help me get along.
Now, you're talking about the Golden State. Has he showed you his ring?
Yeah, actually, I seen him. He invited me to the ring party when I went back this summer when we had a little off time for the 4th of July. So I met with him, I think July 4th that weekend. And we was kicking it, you know what I'm saying? I seen the ring, the trophy. He brought the trophy home, so it was a nice experience.
Wow. So is it kind of like the Stanley Cup in hockey where they just let everybody take it for a day?
Yeah, I guess. Well, he told me the trophy goes home on the private jet, it just flies from hometown to hometown. And so he got it for that weekend. And then they went to, I think, Harrison Barnes next after he got it. So I got to see it and hold it for a little bit.
How about that? So you've got a little taste of what it's like, the NBA championship. Is there more of an unassuming superstar in basketball than the star Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors? I mean, he just looks like an average cat that you would meet on the street, not arguably the best player in the world.
Yeah, he seemed like a video game, like a 2K player. That's kind of stuff you would see on the game that'd make you mad. But when you see him make it in real life, you got to say, wow, I guess he gonna make it on 2K too. So, but he's hands down the top player in the NBA in front of LeBron James and Kevin Durant. But he's having a tremendous season right now.
The reigning MVP, and if you're ever out and available to get to a Warriors game, you got a ticket source now, right?
Yeah, I could have went to the game when they played Indiana previously like a month ago, but we had basketball going on, so I couldn't make it down there. But I'll probably make a game in the near future. You
don't think you could have come up with a good enough excuse for Coach Ray? Coach, I've got something going on.
No, I got bigger things to handle. They said they're going to see a basketball game, so I could catch one. He's going to be in the league for a couple more years, so I'll probably see him when I graduate.
All right. Trey Kellum is our guest. Now, you spent a couple of years at Florida A&M. They're the Rattlers. What was that like?
It was a different type of experience. It was something similar like what we were going through now as a team. My freshman year, it was kind of rough. Like, it was a young team. Everybody was new. I was a freshman coming in, and I was playing I think 23 minutes a game. So we kind of it was a tough little segment. But my sophomore year, we ended up winning 15 games. So I think we can tie the ties up and expect SEMO to get on track.
Now
in a couple of years.
You did a little shot blocking when you were a Rattler, and Coach doesn't want you to be a shot blocker.
Yeah, Coach wants me to. He always say wall up and have the next guy come in and block you, but it's just hard for me to see the ball go in the air, knowing I can at least try to, get a little deflection every now and then. But for the sake of the team, I got to stay out of foul trouble. So walling up is what I'm going to be doing.
Boy, did you happen to think about it at all when you were sitting on the bench the other night along with Joel Angus or on Saturday afternoon that there was no one left to put in the game? Did that cross your mind?
That actually didn't even cross my mind. I was just kind of watching the game. I didn't even know when he had nobody else available on the bench when me and Joel fouled out. So that really didn't cross my mind. I would have been shocked when I would have seen 4 people on the court, because that would have been crazy to have been a part of. So
now you've seen the movie Hoosiers, right? Wow. See, now that we're old, Coach. We're old. He's shaking his head back there. Well, in Hoosiers, which is the greatest basketball movie ever made, they went one game with 4 players at the end, and I'm guessing that Coach Ray, had they put 4 players on the court, Coach, you would have ran the picket fence at him. Yeah, he would have ran the picket fence. So, what are your thoughts now going forward? You guys, you've seen 2 of arguably the best teams in the league in Belmont and Eastern Kentucky. Boy, that's a different style of basketball that Belmont plays, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Belmont is a fast-paced team that likes to get a lot of threes up. It's kind of shocking how they shoot shots you don't expect them to make, but it always goes in. So
kind of like Steph Curry.
Nah, I wouldn't say like Steph Curry, but it's around that area.
I see Curry take some of these shots. Like, there's no way that shot's going in. It's going in.
But Curry kind of does it off the dribble too. Like Belmont, They coming off screens. Like you can see it coming, but Curry, you don't really see it coming because he can't. His trigger is so deep, you just can't expect it coming.
Okay, now you saw Dayton, you saw Evansville, and you saw Belmont. Who had the best ball movement of any team you played so far?
Well, actually, I didn't get to see Dayton and Evansville. I was suspended for the first 2 games of the season. But from when I had watched it online, I had to go with Belmont.
So firsthand, you're saying the Belmont. What's that like when you're in a zone defense, you're pretty much, closer to the basket, and you're just watching this ball fly around. What's that like as a defender?
It's crazy because it's to see a team that well disciplined that's able to move the ball and get a perfect shot every possession. It just it's a wow factor that goes in your mind as you're playing defense. Like when are they going to make a pass? When will we get a hand to tip the deflection on the pass? But with guys like that, everybody can shoot from the 1 through the 5. It's kind of surreal. All
right, so going in to the Belmont game that one of the guys that you'll be asked to defend is their front court guy, Evan Brads, who comes in leading the nation in field goal percentage. Did you get that scouting report? And does that kind of fire you up, give you a little more inspiration, a little more testosterone before you face a guy like that?
Yeah, Coach Ray made that known a couple of times throughout the film sessions that he led the nation in field goal percentage. So I kind of, from an individual standpoint, I wanted to guard him one-on-one so I can show him that he wouldn't have a good night on me. But as a team, I think we did a pretty good job on him.
Well, would you say that was the best offensive game that you guys have had so far this year, Belmont?
Yeah, I would say it was. Everybody kind of was clicking from from the starting five to the bench. And Tony has had an amazing game. He was hitting from all cylinders. So I say that was our best offensive game.
What is the biggest challenge in learning the motion offense, and how different is it from what you have run in the past, maybe what you ran at Florida A&M?
The most difficult thing for me is knowing when to attack and when to not attack. Like in a motion offense, it's a lot of freedom, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. So you got to make cuts, you got to set screens, but you also got to be aggressive in the offense. And I got to find out how to be aggressive and when to be aggressive.
What's interesting in watching your game, when you're making your moves to the basket, there are some times that you will drive through the lane and you will kind of stop and you're under the basket where you really don't have an angle. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes you'll get on the baseline where you'll stop and you're kind of under the basket. What goes through your mind in a situation like that where you're like, man, if I'm going to take a shot here, this is going to be a pretty tough angle?
Yeah, I kind of always find myself in a position like that. I'm kind of used to that little angle because when I get that deep, I know I got the opposite side to finish like a reverse layup or at least try to do something. If I'm down there, I got to at least shoot the ball because I know if I don't, it's going to be 3 seconds. I'm going to get trapped. So I just try my best to get a good shot up.
All right. Would you describe yourself as crafty around the basket?
Yeah, I wish I got a good amount of footwork. I kind of pick up my dribble, and then most people would kind of relax. But when I pick up my dribble, I kind of think I got a better chance of scoring than having a live dribble.
Can you believe the coach is on you about this foul situation?
No, I can believe it. I never fouled this much in my life, but I think it goes both ways with how college basketball is being called now, like with the officiating and then how aggressive I am. And I always kind of.
Do you see difference from your freshman year at Florida A&M to now, because obviously the rules have changed. It's in black and white. The officials are calling a different game.
Yes, it's kind of way different. My freshman year, I remember it was more aggressive. Like it was, I think hand checking, they still kind of didn't allow, but now it's really no hand touching. In the paint, you would think it'd be a little more physical play, but it depends on different nights who's calling the game, what you can get away with.
All right, how fired up are you guys? You get to play a game at home. You guys have logged, I think it's going on 5,000 miles. I'm sure you probably traveled a lot at Florida A&M, but we're going on 5,000 miles already this year.
Yeah, it's a lot of miles, especially when it's a lot of miles on the ground. In the air, it'd be a lot better, but we got to take what we can get.
So in other words, you need Coach Ray to get on this private jet situation.
Yeah, we all need to invest in a little private jet.
There we go. We need a charter. I understand. All right. So Jacksonville State comes to town tomorrow. One of those deals where when we have guys on, we always ask them if they are on social media. Are you on Twitter?
I am actually on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. Let's hear your what's your address so we can.
I think it's _ TRIGGA 25 or it's TRGGA _ 25.
Okay.
But it's either one of them. You can just type in my name, you can find me.
Trigger 25.
Yeah, that's what they. Yeah,
that's your nickname.
Yeah. So TK my nickname, but
TK.
I got a couple nicknames.
Okay. What else?
Yeah, that was the couple, Trigger and TK.
Okay, those were the two. See, they told me there would be no math, and one of the things I asked you. Trey is your given first name.
Yeah, that's my name. I got my name from the movie Boys in the Hood. My mom I guess that was her favorite movie when she was pregnant with me, and she kind of seen me as to hopefully be a guy like Cuba Gooding Jr. to make the right decision at the end instead of following the crowd. But
I gotta believe there's a lot of pressure to be a 3-point shooter with a name like Trey.
No pressure.
All right. We will see you tomorrow night at the Show Me Center. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it, Trey.
Right, thank you.
All right, Trey Kellum. We will talk about the Jacksonville State Gamecocks with Coach Rick Ray when we come back and wrap it up. It is the Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show on the SEMO ESPN Sports Radio Network from Wings, etc. in Jackson.
People are hungry. More than that, they're hangry, and it's 95 degrees out, and they're thirsty. That's right, people are thrangry. They need to chill, and that gives you an idea. You remember Coors Light is filtered and bottled cold, so you pass some cold ones out. Suddenly, it's like they're snowboarding the majestic Rocky Mountains, speeding away from the peaks of Thrangry and down the slopes of yes. So they make with the cheering and let you get with the grilling. Well done. Now it's time for your Coors Light. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Great beer, great responsibility.
The conversation has been growing about Wings Etc. See, Wings Etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now, the word is getting out about Wings Etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings Etc. is a really big deal around here.
Any Jane Doe can tell you that Geico could help you save. But since money talks, we just ask the savings instead.
Greetings and sun salutations. I'm Jane's Money. And I never knew my self-worth until Jane switched her car insurance at Geico.com. Those 15 minutes built me up to real savings. Geico's been helping customers save money like me for over 75 years. So take that to the bank. And namaste.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
How long would you wait for your shower to get hot? How long would you wait for your cell phone to fully charge? How long would you wait to get relief from your nasal congestion? If you're congested now and you want powerful relief now, use Afrin No Drip. Afrin starts working in seconds and keeps working for 12 hours. So why wait? When you can start to get relief in seconds with Afrin. Afrin, powerful congestion relief without the wait. Use as directed. For more information, go to Afrin.com.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
The National Weather Service says mostly cloudy today with a temperature near 32 or so. Tonight down to 20. We'll hit 40 with sunshine on Wednesday. 51 warming up Thursday with plenty of sunshine. And a good chance of showers late Thursday night on and off Friday morning with a high of 51. Saturday, a chance of snow flurries. Otherwise, 38 degrees, 32 sunny on Sunday.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
Well, dude, obviously be better as the focal point of the show. Would I be better for society? No.
Don't miss Russillo and Cano every weekday at noon on SEMO ESPN.
Welcome back to Wings Etc. We are in Jackson, and make a note, next Tuesday we'll be back in the Cape Girardeau location. Hope to see you there from noon until 1 o'clock. The Redhawk doubleheader begins tomorrow at the Show Me Center. The women will play at 5:30. The men will go about 7:45. That's a floating time depending on the length of the women's game. Jacksonville State will come to the Show Me Center. They are 5-14. They have lost 3 in a row. They come in 1-3 in Ohio Valley Conference play. Coach Rick Ray rejoins us. Their top 2 guys are Malcolm Drumright and Jaquil Townser. Drumright, a guy that really distributes the ball well. He's 11th in the league in assists, good three-point shooter at 38%. And then Townser, another guy that is in the top 10 in the OVC in assists, and he's a good three-point shooter. So their 2 guards seem to be similar players.
Yeah, they're guys that are a little bit different as far as like the way they get their three-point shots. Drumright is a young man that can kind of create his own three-pointer. Whereas if you look at Jaquil, he's more of a guy that gets his off of other people. So there'll be a penetration or in and out post opportunity. He'll get that 3. Whereas like Drumright is a guy that'll try to measure up a little bit and shoot that three-pointer. But 2 really good guards. They're going to be a problem for us. Our biggest thing that we're trying to make sure we fix is not allowing paint touches. We've just allowed way too many paint touches, and it's mostly coming off of dribble penetration. And so our guards have got to do a much better job of closing out and keeping people in front of them.
This is not a big team at all as far as in their last game. Their 5 starters, 6'2", 6'3", 6'2", 6'4", 6'6". So, not as big as some of the other teams you've seen.
Yeah, but if you look at college basketball, I was watching a lot of the Purdue-Illinois game the other day, and Illinois was really, really undersized. but they used that to their advantage because they spread Purdue out and had a lot of three-pointers, and their bigs were closing out to their guards and they couldn't drive them. So it was just a lot of problems. So I think this team could be similar in that regard, whereas like our closeouts have got to be really good, because a lot of times when you close out to traditional bigs, they're not a threat. But when you're closing out to these bigs, they're a threat to either drive you or shoot the basketball.
In terms of offensive rebounding, they're a little lower than middle of the pack, 8th. They're next to last in rebounding margin. So this is a team that gets out rebounded about every night out.
Yeah, we've got to take advantage of that. But what you want to do is a lot of times people get out rebounded because offensively you're missing shots and going to get your own shots. So like I don't want to out rebound people on the offensive end, because that means that we're scoring. So I'd much rather score that first time. But if we don't, then we got to take advantage of those second opportunities with guys like Trey Kellum and Tony Anderson, Joel Angus going in and getting those offensive rebounds.
They don't take the ball away a lot. They're 10th out of 12 in steals. One thing I did see that's interesting, no one turns it over less than Jacksonville State. They're only averaging about 11 turnovers, so that's not a weakness for them.
Yeah, I think, first of all, like if you turn the basketball over, if you guys ever been around Coach Green, well, I don't think you want to come back and greet Coach Green after turning the basketball over. So, but they are a very sound, fundamental basketball team. They're not great at one particular thing, but what they do is they secure the basketball, and they do a really good job with their help side defense. I think in this game for us, we've got to be real cognizant of not taking advantage of first opportunity drives. And what I mean by that is you're not going to be able to drive the ball against this team the first time and have success. You're going to have to drive the basketball, kick it out, and then that second drive or that second paint touch is when you're going to have an opportunity to score against this team.
I know that you don't prepare the scouting report, but you yourself watch a lot of videos, so you may not have individual scouts on some of these guys, but people in our area are going to be very interested in the 3 local players that are on Jacksonville State. That is Andre Statham. He's a 6'6" freshman. He's been primarily a three-point shooter for them. 13 of his 21 field goals have been three-pointers. He's played in every game off the bench. What's the scouting report on Andre Statham?
Well, I think, first of all, those young men are going to be excited about playing here in Cape Girardeau because of their local ties here. So I think they're going to be more amped up, more pumped up than they would normally be. So from what we've seen on tape so far, he's a guy that you got to close out to take away his three-point shot. What we look at when we talk about scouting is we always look at percentage of threes taking. So like if a guy is taking 21 shots and he's 21 shots and 13 of those shot attempts have been threes, that tells you a lot about the way you need to close out to him.
Now, one guy, Delfinko Bogan, is another freshman. He's from Charleston. He's played in all but one game. He's averaging about 11 minutes, hasn't had a double-figure scoring game yet, so he's still feeling his way at Division I. But a guy who's jumped into the starting lineup now is former Charleston Blue Jay Greg Tucker. Now, he's got more experience. He played a year at Northern Colorado, then went junior college to Mineral area. He started the last 8 games for them, and he's averaging 7 points, but in conference play, he's a double-figure scorer. So this is a guy that is certainly on your radar.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's a guy that can create offense for himself. And he also has experience, what you talked about. He's a guy that's a 3rd year in college right now, so he has the physical body to go in and finish in traffic. He's a guy that can kind of dip his shoulder a little bit and go make plays. So you would expect a junior college guy coming into your program to have more of an immediate impact than a freshman.
And, he hit 63 pointers last year at junior college, but he's not settling for a lot of threes. I mean, he's been to the free throw line 49 times already. That tells me he's kind of attacking the rim, right?
Yeah, in a limited amount of minutes. If you look at their free throws, man, he's got a lot of attempts, but his minutes are not as high as some of those other guys. So I would venture to say that he's probably leading them in free throw attempts per minute.
Well, we just don't know the status of Cam Bescheid. He only played 4 minutes. This is a very, very heralded player coming out of Cardinal Ritter High School. He was a consensus top 75 player in the nation, played his freshman year at Notre Dame. Then he left Notre Dame, went to Mizzou, was there for a year, never played a game for Mizzou. He left Mizzou. At first, reports said he was going to Iona. He, surfaced at Jacksonville State, became eligible at semester. He has 2 double-figure scoring games in the 3 that he's played, but a super talented cat. I don't know, what the situation is, why he only played 4 minutes the other night, but that guy has a huge ceiling in this conference, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a young man that if you just look at his talent level, he's a guy that can come in and be an impact player. Now, obviously, the game of basketball is not just on the court, it's off the court too. So I know he's had his troubles in the past, and hopefully for the young man, he's making strides and doing things the right way so he can actually make an impact on the court. Well, if he's out there at 6'7", 200, long, athletic, I think he I don't know, he had an 18-point game against Villanova when he was at Notre Dame. I mean, here's a guy that, really could be one of the top talents in the Ohio Valley Conference. He's got to be a matchup issue. Yeah, there's no question about it. And he's a guy I would think for them would be playing that 4 position. So he would be a guy that's a skilled 4. And so he's going to be able to stretch the defense with his ability to shoot the basketball, drive the basketball. He's a guy that can score it now. And so it can score in a amount of different ways. So, I don't know exactly what his status is. We always prepare, our scouting reports like everybody is going to play. So hopefully we'll be prepared if he does play. One thing, they're kind of run-of-the-mill in a lot of statistical categories, but one thing they do well, they're a good free throw shooting team, 3rd best in the conference. Close game, they're a problem. Yeah, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to send a team to the line that shoots it so well, and they get to the free throw line because of the fact they got those 2 guards that can really penetrate and go make plays. Yeah, this is a team that has already shot 341 free throws. So what's the game plan tomorrow against the Gamecocks? Well, to me, the first thing that we've got to make sure we take care of is we've got to be really good in transition defense. Because they're a smaller team, that means they got multiple people that can bring the ball up the court, multiple people that can kick the ball ahead and can put it on the deck and go make a play. And we've really struggled in our transition defense of getting the ball stopped. So we've got to make sure we build a wall with our transition defense and now allow paint touches in transition. The second part for us, it just really boils down to us being solid on our closeouts. We've been spending a lot of time showing our guys tape of us being upright and not being down in the defensive stand in our closeouts. And so we've got to keep people out of the paint and not get beat on closeouts. And then for us on the defensive end as well, we got to finish the sentence with a period. And that period is a defensive rebound. We've got to do a much better job of securing the glass. On the offensive end for us, we've got to make sure we're patient. I think against a team like a Jacksonville State where they're really overhelp, you're not going to get a paint touch on that first side. We've got to move the ball from side to side to side and then break that defense down. And I think after the first paint touch, we can have much better success on the second paint touch of getting a quality shot. So another Hoosiers reference. I want to see 3 passes, right? Well, I tell you what, I want to see 3 passes, but I want to see 3 passes with a good result. Yeah. All right. It'll be right around 7:45 tomorrow night, second game of the doubleheader. We'll see you then, Coach. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, That's Eric. Coach Rick Ray, and that's going to do it for the Coalfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. Thanks to Trey Kellum. Thanks to our chief engineer, Dean Field here, Todd Benacki here as well. So we appreciate them joining us and all of their hard work, and we will talk to you tomorrow night, 5:30 for the women, 7:45 for the men. ESPN Radio is next.
Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Sports Network, 92.9 KLSC Malden, 1220 KGIR,